Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Middle Class Rockstar. I'm your host, Andy Sido. Today's guest is session harmonica player as well as Willie Nelson's harmonica player for the last 50 years, Mickey Rapahel. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back. I hope you had a great week. It's a pleasure to be back. And I've just been a chicken with my head cut off this week because I released, as I'm recording this monologue, I released an EP today called Time, Love, Everywhere on streaming platforms and even CDs, which surely will sit under my bed for a while. But anyway, if you're an independent artist, it's just... there's so much stuff you got to do, and now that it's out, and today for me, by the way, is April 9th, so by the time you're hearing this, it'll, be a week from now or something, but it's, there's so much stuff to do, and then when the music comes out, you just want to sit in the kitchen and have a cold beer, and then you realize, well, this is when the work starts, pitching to playlists and blah, 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 this, that, the other thing. But anyway, I'm really proud of it. It's called Time, Love, Everywhere, with a period after every word, and just under my name, Andy Sido. And it's out there. It's doing its thing. A real cool episode today, and I don't normally have a co-host, but I brought a co-host on who could speak fluent harmonica. My guest is Mickey Rapahel. He came up in the Dallas folk scene and is just a legendary harmonica player, and he's played with everybody in the Nashville scene, and honestly, just not even just there. He's kind of just everybody everywhere. And he transcends generations too. I mean, he's been Willie Nelson's harmonica player for the last 50 years or so, his touring harmonica player, and his studio harmonica player, of course. But he's played with so many people across generations, too. I'm going to read down a list really quick of some of the people he's either toured with or done studio work with or played live with. Willie Nelson, Jason Isbell, Chris Stapleton, Tom Morello, Paul Simon, Snoop Dogg, Neil Young, Norah Jones, Bob Dylan, Ray Charles, Elton John, Dave Matthews, Wynton Marsalis, Kenny Chesney, We're Halfway Home. That's not a band. We're halfway home. U2, Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Blind Boys of Alabama, Lionel Richie, Mötley Crüe, Zac Brown Band, Merle Haggard, Chris Christopherson, Jerry Lee Lewis, Dwayne Eddy, Vince Gill, Leon Russell, and Blue Oyster Cult. I don't know anybody with that impressive of a resume. But he's played harmonica with, I don't know what else to say, but everybody. He's played with everybody. And so it's a real pleasure to get to chat with him. And we don't talk about. We tried not to talk about the things that are done in every other interview he gives. How did you meet Willie and this, that, and the other. We kind of wanted to get into what it's like being a session player. Collaboration, some of the finer points of being a studio harmonica player, recording his parts remotely for people. So we jumped into a lot of those things, and to help me out with that, I brought along my pal Nic Clark, who is currently working at a studio in San Jose with Kid Anderson, and he's doing a lot of cool records out there. But Nic and I kind of came up in the scene together in Denver, and we've just been really, really good buds for a while. He actually, the one other time I had a co-host for David Dondero, he was there for that one too. But Nic is the best harmonica player I know, great songwriter and finger-picking guitar player too, but just a wonderful harmonica player. And I thought for an interview like this, it'd be really nice to bring on another harmonica player, somebody who can speak harp, and that proved to be really helpful. And it was a real treat for Nic getting to chat with Mickey as well. So really cool stuff, and we have a professional harmonica player helping conduct the interview too. So awesome stuff. Not that we get too nerdy into harmonica stuff, but the content is in there. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the show. If you'd like to help out the podcast in a monetary way, I'm on Patreon at patreon.com/Andy Sido, SYDOW. I put up exclusive content for both my podcast and my artist career. In fact, I'll be putting up some content that I didn't include in this show, part of the conversation with Mickey, that was some really interesting stuff about harp playing. So, yeah, you can check that out on the Patreon page. If you want to help out in a completely free way, that's just as awesome. Rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. It just takes a second, and it really is a huge help to me and helps me grow this thing. So, cool. Let's jump into the show. Quick thanks to our sponsors, PQ Mastering. Patrick at PQ Mastering puts the finishing touches on this podcast, and for any of your audio or restoration needs, go to pqmastering.com. Also, Narrator Music. For simple and affordable licensing for sync, visit narratorrf.com. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, shoot me an email at middleclassrockstar@gmail.com. Clap sync. Mickey, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us. And how have you been doing over the last year with everything going on? Have you been keeping busy?
Yeah, I have been keeping busy, and I've actually enjoyed being home. I mean, it's been a change not to work for a living, but I've been able to do a few recording sessions. And I mean, the main thing is I've been on the road with Willie since 1973, pretty consistently. So I'm welcoming a year of no work.
Yeah. And for these some of the recording sessions you've been doing, do you do them remote? Are you able to record at home and send things off to people?
I am. I'm able to, to work at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a little studio set up in my office, and I can do a harmonica overdub.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I think that's been something that's happened the last year, is people are doing the home recording and sending it off, which is sort of cool. But
if you're not recording a whole band, it works fine. I mean, I'm just really, just working, just doing one instrument. So, a nice mic and a decent interface, and,
Yeah, absolutely.
And a laptop, and I can do everything, and plugins,
Yeah, sure. And are you feeling pretty savvy with that stuff, or are you very basics with it in terms of
very basic? No, I had an engineer, a guy build studios, Mark Meeker, come over and set me up to where, I got the universal audio interface, and I said, I want a Telefunken V76 pre and the Neve 1073 pre.
When did you get this set up? When did you start doing the home studio stuff?
Well, I've been doing the home studio. I had the Apogee Duet interface, and I would take it on the road with me. So I've been set up several years to do that, but I upgraded to the universal audio as soon as the pandemic hit. I just thought, I bought a new laptop and bought the interface and got a nice, a new, an old, new to me though, Neumann.
Nice.
Mic, and I use the Royer 122 ribbon most of the time.
Wow. So to jump back a little bit, how did you first get started, playing music and coming up in Dallas, and what was the interest in harmonica as your instrument?
Well, I heard a guy named Don Brooks play harmonica in a little coffee house that I would go to. I was in high school. I think I could barely drive. And I would go and hear, Michael Murphy and Jerry Jeff Walker and these, Texas songwriters, Steve Fromholtz, who ended up playing with later. In fact, we went to, the route was going to New Mexico and Colorado. There were so many great little clubs. And, folk clubs, the folk scene in Colorado, in Denver was huge.
Really?
Yeah. This is early 70s. So that's really how I got my start playing in the folk scene.
Wait, and what were some of the venues in Denver? Because we're both, he's in San Jose currently, but I'm in Denver, and we're both from Colorado.
I cannot remember the names. One was a hotel. There was an old hotel downtown.
Okay.
Do you know the name of it? I mean, what was one of the oldest hotels?
The Brown Palace. Was that it?
Can't remember. It was something like that. I mean,
yeah,
totally. Well, it
Yeah,
makes sense back at that time with Harry Tuft and the Folklore Center. The folk scene in Denver was
yeah.
kind of big then.
And is there a street called Fairfax?
Yep.
Big. So there was a club on Fairfax, and this I think was even before Red Rocks, because with Willie we were one of the first people to play Red Rocks. But and then there was another club we played with Willie. I just can't remember the name. I'm sure they're not there now.
Yeah, that's so interesting to think back on, just because it's a familiar area to me. But so you're playing around the folk scene, doing some touring, but harmonica became your instrument. I mean, what was the love?
Yeah, I was a terrible guitar player, and I wanted to be a musician. So I learned this guy Donnie Brooks play harmonica, and he played and recorded with Jerry Jeff, and ended up playing with Waylon. And he was actually, when I was a teenager, when I met him, he actually was the first guy to sit me down and show me how to play, this diatonic scale, I mean, just that pattern, and that kind of opened up, all these doors, so it, just how the notes were laid out. He showed me how to do that. But he was probably one of the biggest influences in my playing.
Yeah, what was he like, man? I'm a big fan of his that song that he did with Waylon. Really wrote it. What is it? I forget the name of the song, but yeah, I love his playing. What was that guy like?
He was he was a very sweet guy. I mean, yeah, he was a sweet guy, but he kind of took me under his wing a little bit because I was just starting out playing, and he did share some secrets with me, and that's, I mean, nobody can really teach you how to play. You just have to teach yourself. But he showed me how the notes were laid out, and his phrasing was amazing. His tone was amazing. In fact, he played a great solo of his is on that Honky Tonk Heroes record.
Yeah.
All those Billy Joe Shaver. In fact, I'm going in to cut. We're doing a Billy Joe Shaver tribute.
Yeah.
And I'm going in the studio with Jason Isbell and his wife Amanda Shires, and we're cutting Honky Tonk Heroes tomorrow.
Ah, that's awesome, man. That's killer.
So I'll get to kind of emulate, not copy, but just play a variation of the Donnie Brooks.
That's beautiful, man. That's awesome.
Will you try to play it? I mean, how similar will you try to play it?
I'll start it off. I'll probably play the first 4 bars. I might copy his solo just because it's embedded in my brain, and it's kind of a signature lick. But I'll try not to. It's kind of just stream of consciousness. I'm not going to plan what I play, but it's going to be similar because I've listened to that solo probably more than anything. But I don't want to copy it because it'll just sound like I'm trying to copy him, poorly. Yeah.
So, was there ever a time as you started, playing harmonica, was there a lot of opportunities that came up right away? I mean, did you ever, in the 70s, did you ever have a day job along with it, or were you just jumping over and playing with this band, jumping over, playing with that band?
Yeah, well, a day job. That's like where you go to work and...
Or paper route, whatever.
After high school, I worked at the post office for a while, and that was pretty much a nightmare.
What were you doing?
Unloading trucks and of mail bags and then sorting the packages.
Sounds like a Bukowski album.
I didn't deliver them. I just sorted them. And then the minute you got that truck or those 10 trucks unloaded and those thousands of packages, sorted, another few trucks would come in, and that conveyor belt would just be, I'm sure it's all automated now, but there was no end game, It was just constant. And so I knew that, I could have probably retired by now. Or 10 years ago, if I'd have stuck with a civil service job.
Sure.
Which is a lot of security in that. I just wanted to play music, and I just kind of knocked around and played with I was playing with B.W. Stevenson, so we were touring, and then I got with Willie, and he were pretty busy there, but I moved to Austin, and there was a great great music scene there, to where you could go out every night and just sit in and jam with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably just a lot of opportunities popped up that way, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when did you start going in and doing sessions for a bunch of people as well?
Well, I started doing sessions in high school because there was a recording studio near where I lived that did a lot of jingles and a lot of country demos and stuff. So it's called Summit Burnett Studios. And Smokey, what was Smokey's last name? He was one of the Light Crust, Smokey Montgomery was a banjo player for the Light Crust Doughboys. And he was like a musical director at that studio. And when people would come in to cut a demo, he'd have me come by there after school, and I would just kind of sit in the lobby, and he'd be tracking, doing these country demos for these people. And they'd say, "Hey, you want a harmonica on that?" And if they did, I'd be sitting out there just kind of on call.
Wow. That's so funny, man. That's so cool.
So that's kind of where I learned, my way around the studio a little bit. But I wasn't a good reader. And this one guy, Yule Box, who was a great writer and arranger, he was doing I don't know if it's a film score or a commercial. Anyway, he had hired me to come play, and they were just, everything was written out. There was an orchestra there. I was like, man, I'm not a reader. I felt so bad, but his wife took me in one of the other studios and would play what they wanted me to play out on the piano, and I could play by ear. So when I heard, the melody lines that they wanted, they would teach it to me, then I would go in the studio and play.
Wow.
Nice, man. When you started doing sessions in Nashville, or I guess it would be Austin first, right?
No, there wasn't. I didn't get involved in studios in Austin. I don't think there were really. Well, Jerry Jeff I played on a Jerry Jeff record in Austin, but that was like in an old warehouse building that they brought some mobile stuff in, and I think Leon Russell built a studio down there, or had his studio for a while, and then Willie's studio. Willie didn't have a studio till later, till the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really doing sessions and stuff. And I'd go to Nashville and do stuff, or if Willie would go to Nashville, I'd go with him. And the B.W. Stevenson records we cut in Chicago or L.A.
Yeah, totally.
There really wasn't much of a recording scene in Austin at that time.
Yeah. So when did you because to me, you're like the harmonica session guy. I know there's Charlie McCoy and all that, but I feel like you're the most prominent. When I go to a record store and I look through the liner notes, your name shows up all the time. And
liner notes? What are liner notes?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I only subscribe to Spotify.
Yeah, but
actually will list who plays on the records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There. When did you stop being just a road guy and actually start to develop a name as the go-to guy?
Well, I was trying, I don't know about go-to, but I was trying all the time. I really wanted to be a studio musician. That was, and luckily there weren't that many harmonica players. Charlie, of course, set the bar.
Totally, yeah.
So, but there weren't that many guys playing harmonica. So if I was in Nashville and they couldn't get Charlie, or I knew the act or something like that, there were friends, I would get the call to play. But, again, they don't use harmonica on every song.
Yeah. Thank God.
But they were using banjo and accordions last year, so I figured the next trend's going to be the harmonica. So
totally, yeah. So this is one kind of nerd question. I promised Andy, being a harmonica player, I wasn't going to come on and just ask a bunch of nerd questions. But there's this.
You can ask.
Okay, I have a few then. But one of the main ones is as a harmonica player, I'm also a fan of lyrics. I love Willie, John Prine, Todd Snyder, anybody Guy Clark. I love them all, and I was wondering, I kind of feel in your playing that you have investment in the lyrics. Like, do lyrics, I know like music and tempo and attitude of the song kind of inform your playing, but do you care about lyrics? Because
when I have a chart, a music chart, I mean, if I, like a number chart or whatever, I'll always ask for the lyrics, for a lyric chart too, so I can kind of play along and get an idea. I totally play off the lyrics, and especially if I already know the changes, if I'm not having to really watch the, look at the chart for the chord chart. If I can figure out, what the melody is beforehand, then I'm going to pay attention and play along with the lyric.
Totally, that's
awesome. Important. Unless it's something I don't. It's tricky where I've got to look at the chart. But mostly, if they say, "Do you want a number chart?" If they say it's easy, "Do you need a number chart?" I'll say no, but give me the lyrics. Usually, I can hear it once and know what's going on.
Well, and does the actual lyrical content have an impact on what you play? I mean, would you play the same part if the lyrics was just a melody with no actual words, or are you really listening to what the lyrics are, what the meaning of the song is when you put a part in?
I'm totally listening, playing along and painting a picture with the lyric.
Yeah,
most of
so cool. Yeah, man. I mean, like one you did with sorry to nerd out, but that thing you did with Jason and Amanda on Letterman when you did the Zevon tune.
Yeah.
Just the taking the time and then showing up. Like when I hear you play on records, you always have the perfect time of when to show up and to not overplay and make it, a harp thing, And,
well, I had at a very young age, and all musicians are guilty of playing too much, but at not even a young age, we toured with Grady Martin played guitar in our band. And he was like the guitar player all through the 40s, the 50s. I mean, he was the studio cat, the leader on all of these great records. He was a guitar player on Marty Robbins' El Paso, that fabulous guitar intro. And so he told me one day, he goes, "Man," he goes, "smoke a cigarette." He goes, "Take that damn thing out of your mouth. You play too much."
That's great.
Well, that was the best advice. It wasn't so warm and fuzzy, but that was the best advice anybody ever gave me. But yeah, I know how to listen. I listen to the lyric, and with the Zevon thing, I probably even watched the Letterman episode where Warren is on. Warren does the interview on that, and I'm a big Warren Zevon fan anyway.
Yeah.
So I knew the lyric and I knew the emotion of the song, and. There's also a pecking order. If Amanda was going to play, I'm surely not going to step on her, her playing.
Yeah.
And she's such a sensitive player too. But you do that. I mean, if players are good and professionals, they're not, they're going to get, if they're taking a solo, they're going to end it in enough time to have the next soloist give them some pickup beats, give them some time. They're not going to, just play over each other.
Yeah. Did you ever do anything with Warren?
No, I hadn't met him. Mm-mm.
Yeah. And is there anybody that you look back on now, you're like, man, I wish I'd gotten to do a session with that person?
A lot of them, really. Ray Charles. I mean, we played some live stuff with Ray Charles, but I would love to done a session with Ray Charles, Paul Simon, and I've played with Paul, lots. I've sat in on his shows. But we've never. Oh, I have recorded with him. That's right.
Really? Because
forgetting. He produced a Willie track. Willie cut Graceland. So I went to New York and worked with him. Just he and I in the studio.
I heard that he's like the Stanley Kubrick of sessions. Like he'll make somebody just go and go and go. Like, is that at all what happened?
Yeah. That's an understatement, but yes. I 2 trips to New York. I mean, the first sessions we spent, a couple of 3 hours, and he had me play every kind of rhythm thing that I could possibly come up with or that he could come up with. because he's not sure what he wants, but he knows what he doesn't want. So and then it didn't happen, and I thought, oh man, what a loser am I. Went home, and then he called me back a couple weeks later. Went back up to try it again, and spent a few hours, working on this song. And the take we ended up using was my very first take that I did with the engineer before Paul even got to the studio.
Oh my gosh! Well, how many takes do you think you ended up doing?
Oh God, 80.
Man, it really is like it's like Shelley Duvall in The Shining. She's just breaking down.
But it was great. It was like my best friend at the beginning until it was like, how much? I'll pay you anything to let me go home. But what it was I felt like I couldn't make him happy. But that wasn't the point. It was just he wasn't sure what he wanted, and there were so many different variations. And he's such a genius. He had so many ideas. He wanted to try. He wasn't going to leave till he tried every one of everything we could come up with. And he was right. It was a great learning experience. I just was taking it personal at the time. And he and I are friends now, so I never have discussed it with him. But I know other people that have worked with him, and it's the same thing. He gets everything out of you that he possibly can, and he should. I would have hated to just walk in there and done one take, and he goes, "Okay, that's fine," and leave.
Yeah.
Even though my instinct was right before he came in the studio, but man, he came up with some just great stuff that I really wasn't capable of coming up with myself. So it was a real learning experience. But he trusted my gut instinct, which is after all of it, he says, well, what did you do before I got here? So.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's crazy.
But so it was a real learning experience,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Oh, I was wondering, sorry, I'm drawing a blank, but, so when you started getting, just session work in general, like was Charlie McCoy still there? Was there did you learn anything as far as because to me I think there's a lineage, and it's Charlie and then you. I know I love Don's playing, but prominent to me is you and Charlie. Did he ever have any harmonica to harmonica advice?
Oh yeah. He's been very supportive of me. And of course, he was revered in my eyes. And with Willie, we did Hee Haw one time, and he's the musical director. So we're playing, and he's sitting right at my feet, and that was so hard just to have him there.
Yeah,
he's so supportive, and he's been very generous to me. He had me, and I just study him. I mean, he does not play one note that does not absolutely have to be there.
Yeah.
So, but I played on one of his records. In fact, this rhythm thing that I learned from Donnie Brooks, that I played on City of New Orleans. He cut City of New Orleans, and then wanted me to do that rhythm because either he didn't know how to do it or just didn't want to take the time to mess with it, or was just being throwing me a bone. Either way, I played the rhythm on that. And of course, when I'm in the studio with him, I'm watching, I was over being a little nervous, maybe a little, but I'd watch how he'd work the mic and what mic he'd use. And then he let me fill, told me to go ahead and fill a verse. Not just play the rhythm thing. So it's cool to be able to play on a Charlie McCoy record.
Yeah, that's so awesome, man. I think that's cool.
And he had Harold Bradley playing, and Pete Wade, and Harold Bradley was playing this Dan Electro. And I said, man, when's that? Where'd you get, or what's the story on that guitar? And he goes, I hadn't played this guitar since I played it on Patsy Cline's record.
Wow. So it's talking about the studio dynamic a little bit as we've kind of gotten into, and I know you're chatting about having to do 80 takes a second ago. What is the...
Well, it's a positive thing. I don't want to take that out of... People could take that out of context, but it was great. It was a great experience.
It was a positive thing, but surely in the moment, maybe didn't feel that way. Or, do you ever have times when you go to the studio and you get frustrated? I mean, I have that happen to me and with people that I work with, and we got to somehow work with it and figure things out. I mean, what's like some takeaways of just being a session musician for so long for you?
Yeah, well, once you get in there, you're committed. Sometimes if somebody's going to send me something now, because I can edit, I mean, I can say yes or no. And I never thought I'd be turning anything down. But if somebody sends me a song, I mean, the work is nice, but if I don't hear the harmonica on it myself, I'll just say, I just don't hear this, and won't do it. I won't do it just to play the harmonica, But I think that comes again with being able to say no, really, because I mean, there's nothing worse than having a harmonica where it doesn't belong.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you're the first harmonica player ever to say, I don't think this needs me.
Yeah. But I do play cowbell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever have any sessions where you went in and did want to play something and did hear something, but maybe the producer didn't hear it, and for whatever reason it just didn't work out and make the record?
Yeah, or I played on something that was really hard to play on, and and then when the record comes out, they've got me so far down in the mix, I'm thinking, what's the point? Why'd they even have me come in here?
Yeah. Yeah. And is there a standout session for you, if you can look back through all of them? One where, if you're, I don't know, if your whole legacy was leaning on one track that you played on a session, or a couple tracks or an album, what would it be? You
mean a positive one?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I loved working with Brian Ahern, who produced Emmylou Harris, and Here, There, and Everywhere was a solo. I played a solo on that, and that thing changed keys several times, and he just worked with me, and we just put together this, what is one of my favorite solos, with the strings kind of weaving through it. So that's one of my favorites, was Here, There, and Everywhere on an Emmylou Harris record.
Yeah. Wow. Did you have another one, Nick? I don't want to jump in front of you.
I mean, I have a bunch, but
Smoking in the Boys' Room, that was fun, for Mötley Crüe.
Yeah.
It was just a screaming song, and Tommy Lee and the producer was in with me, in the studio, and just kind of egged me on to play.
Yeah.
Nice.
Tom Werman was the guy that produced the record.
And so you were talking about a second ago, do you sometimes turn down tracks? Do people now, with everybody having computers and home recording, do people just send you tracks? And
well, they do, kind of. Yeah, they do. But I'm real picky, because it's really got to work with the harmonica, and a lot of people may just, I'm fortunate that they want me on the record, and I haven't turned down too many, but there's been a few that I just didn't hear, myself playing on.
Yeah,
totally. Here's a question I have. Like every other instrument, I think the harmonica is the only instrument that is still evolving, and especially the diatonic, with the Howard Levy stuff, being able to play a diatonic fully chromatic and all that stuff. Although I hear you're playing, and it's to me, it's like how I've learned to play a little more like traditional blues and folk, and and it's more for the song. Do you, maybe not necessarily those new Howard Levy overblow techniques, but is there things that you do with the harmonica, whether it's like diatonic or chromatic, that you keep working on and pursuing to just see what's out there?
No, because Howard Levy is a genius, and he does that so well. And so I don't do any of the overblows.
Totally, yeah.
yeah, if that note, if there's a note that needs to be overblown, I'm just not going to play it.
Yeah, but like, do you mess around with like the chromatic harmonica?
I do play a little chromatic, yeah, and I was taking some lessons on the chromatic that was way over my head. But the Hohner now is making the pentatonic harp, the pentaharp, and I don't think it's on the market yet. But it's a pentatonic scale, and so far all I've been able to come up with is.
That's awesome. I gotta talk to my Hohner guy. Give me the smoke on the water harp.
Yeah.
Do you have
and you can play.
That could be. I could see that being a very high. I'm not going to say high selling. I'm going to say high streaming tribute album.
Yes, of 20 minutes of Smoke on the Water, I think.
Yeah. What do you have a preference between the touring life, doing all the shows on the road with Willie, as opposed to doing the studio stuff? Are you somebody who needs the mix of both to be sane?
I need the studio. I mean, I really love the studio, but this is the first time I've been off the road for any length of time. And I kind of miss it a little bit, I know I probably don't miss it too much because I know we'll go back. I know we'll start back up in August. So, we already have a beginning date. So I'm cool just to, take it easy and enjoy being home. Because for years, I was never in my house. So it's nice to be home. I told somebody the other day I was going to move, and they said, "Where are you moving to?" I said, "The living room."
Yeah. How many dates a year? Do you think you guys will still be doing after this year?
Well, as long we did almost 100 dates last year. We worked with Willie, about 90 dates. And then I'd go out on the weekends. When I wasn't working with Willie, I'd go out with Chris Stapleton, who, that was a real fun gig. I was working a lot more, but with Willie, I think we did 90 cities in 2019.
Wow. You've really, you just mentioned the two names, Chris Stapleton and Willie Nelson. Not only have you been kind of the guy for the 70s and 80s generation, you're still the guy. You're playing with the new artists out now. What is it about your playing? What is it about you that has allowed you so much longevity? People keep calling.
I'm a nice guy.
Yeah. You are a nice guy.
I don't know. I know when to shut up. I know when to not play.
Yeah.
I think, but a lot of sessions, like I just did one the other day for Joey Moy, who's a producer. And the artist is a new guy named Larry Fleet, great singer, songwriter, real country. I don't know. I guess they just, it's still kind of unique because it's not used on every record. It's not overused. So if you've got harmonica, it's kind of maybe there's a cool factor, I'd like to think. But then you've got a lot of times it's not used, I think, is because you can't reproduce, unless you've got a harp player in the band, which nobody does.
Yeah.
You can't reproduce it on stage.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a hindrance. But, sometimes some producers are just intent on making a good record, and they're not really so concerned about, well, is this going to play well live,
Should they be?
I don't think so. Yes, so they can take me out on tour.
Okay.
And I played on an up-and-coming rising star, a girl named Ashlyn Kraft, who, and it's good that I get, find out. I try to keep current and see who's new out there.
Do you have a favorite new artist that like you're just fully behind and supporting? Maybe somebody you haven't even played with yet, or
that I haven't played.
Or just somebody that's new that you're like, they're hell yeah.
Everybody. I mean, if it's good, if it's really good,
Yeah.
I did a New Year's Eve thing with the Avett Brothers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Cool. And they've toured with us, and I've sat in with them. They're a lot of fun to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see a harmonica going in well with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to ask about. I don't know too much about it, and I think it's really cool. You working with lung patients, and I wanted to know more about that.
Oh yeah, I did there was these people came to me, Silicon Valley, that were involved in the Fitbit, designing that, and they were interested in working with COPD patients, doing maybe an app to where the harmonica, which is used in some hospitals as exercise, because right now some of the therapy is just blowing into this tube that kind of offers some resistance, but you can exhale and inhale, which exercises the lung. So one of the advisors is a doctor at the Mayo Clinic. So I went up to the Mayo in Rochester, Minnesota, and first we did a battery of tests where they measured my lung capacity and my breathing strength, and it was all just pretty normal. I mean, average, nothing heroic at all. And then they had to, before you get insurance to really, they know that the harmonica helps, and the thing is, Grandpa's going to get tired of blowing into a tube. So if he maybe had a harmonica, that he could play, he would do his exercises. So my job was to maybe inspire, or to not necessarily to teach, but in some way, teach him how to play "Oh Susanna."
Totally, yeah,
like that. That would be an app that would actually measure, I guess, by sound, the pressure coming out of the harmonica. But there was one test, we had to get insurance companies to sign off of it. And there was one test, they wanted to test the pressure of the diaphragm when you're playing. So they would have had to put a wire or a tube down my throat, with a sensor, and then play harmonica.
Brutal.
And, we didn't get to that point yet. I said, let's wait till we get some financing before we start being invasive. But I was in their clinic, and I had about 80 sensors on my chest, and then 10 cameras on like a track around me that would video me, and then they had a harmonica like in a built-in stand, because I had to stand there and lean into this harmonica and play. But it showed on these computers, it showed every bit of every movement of the lung. When I was playing, what part of the lung was being stimulated. So that was pretty interesting.
That's so cool.
Never got any further with that, because then they wanted me to write a teaching program, and I'm just not I don't teach.
Totally. So. Yeah, that's so cool, because I do I do something like that at like children's hospitals. Not necessarily for like health benefits, but just to like hang out with the kids for a day.
Yeah. I've done that too, where we've gone to musicians on call, where we go with Nils Lofgren, who played guitar with Springsteen.
Yeah.
I was in Phoenix, where he lives, and we went to a hospital, and you just go into a kid's room and, do you want to hear some music? Sometimes I say no.
Yeah.
And then, I played Somewhere Over the Rainbow and made everybody cry, so we took that off the list.
Yeah.
But that's great. It makes you feel really good when you're playing for these kids.
Totally. And when I saw that, I don't know, it might have been like a year or so ago when I saw like this little thing with you doing this with the patients, and it was very cool to be able to add that into emails and like talk about like the brief, like it's also like kind of good for the health, too. And so cool,
It
man.
is good for your breathing. I think it is good for COPD patients.
Yeah.
It's just the insurance company there has to be scientific data on
Totally.
it. And we didn't have that. I mean, it existed. I just didn't do it. It wasn't, we didn't have it for what we were working on.
Totally. I just think that's so cool, man. Doing that plus being a badass like you are. I think that's so awesome to take the time out and do that. That's awesome, man.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, it gives you something to do it's a good thing to do. And, when we tour, and actually Kevin, Willie's bass player, he plays a little guitar and sings. He's been doing it on his own. I'm not really there where I can just go in and play by myself. I like to have somebody with me,
Totally.
Yeah. Well,
I'm open to do that. Hospitals, weddings, bar mitzvahs.
but yeah, we're gonna have your booking email show up on the bottom of the page right there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, that is really neat, and Nic is working on a children's record, so he's very
Oh, great.
he's very into, well, as we all should be, but Nic especially really goes out of his way to do those sorts of things. So
Yeah, man.
But it's amazing you have to keep 100 feet away from a school. I don't know how you're going to do this.
I have my ways. I can figure it out. It's the internet age.
yeah. So who's, as you think about passing the torch down, who's the next Mickey? Is there anybody up and coming harmonica players that you think, man, that guy or that gal is gonna play on everybody's session?
Well, there's a blues guy who I think is brilliant, young kid. I think he's young, pretty young. Jason Ritchie.
Oh yeah.
Really like, and he teaches. He's got great stuff online. He's one of my favorite. I don't want to say up and coming because he's probably been around for a while, but he's he's one of the new guys. New to me anyway. I mean, I've known him 10 years. But
sweetheart, such a sweetheart. Yeah, and he's kind of, I would say, he's like kind of like the bridge between like more traditional players and that Howard thing, where he's not like super. He doesn't go to outer space. He's more about the groove, but he can do those new techniques. Totally.
Yeah.
He could probably do a country. So I've never heard him play on a country session, but it's just music. So if you've got a good ear. And you can play your instrument. You can do any of it.
Yeah.
Have you played? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Yeah. Have you played with Jason before? I mean, have you guys connected?
No, have not. I've spoken with him on the phone, but we've never played together.
Nice. This is. I feel like this might be like should be reserved for the end, but I'll just get it out now. I know you're a bike. You're a biker, with your bicycle. What's the coolest? Because I'm getting into, riding bikes for the health benefits. Is there a cool, interesting, or awkward place you've rode your bike?
No. Yes. Probably the coolest ride I had was a Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, nice.
Across the Golden Gate Bridge through Sausalito, and then through Mill Valley, and then up to Tiburon, and then we started at the Presidio, at the base of the Golden Gate Bridge, and then took the ferry back into the city.
Nice.
So that was on, and there were some great places too in Maine that we rode. The last year we toured. Kevin, the bass player, rides bikes, and Matt Rollins. Who actually co-produces some of our records and played with, we were on tour with, who were we on? Who were we on tour with? Okay, my mind is going. Anyway, Matt rides bikes. So we would go off, maybe do a 3-hour ride on a show day. It was pretty intense, Allison Krauss.
Oh, yeah.
So he was playing with Alice, and he has his bike on the road. I keep a bike on the bus. So we would, map out a ride and just go. And this place in Maine was just so gorgeous and a little hilly. I mean, there were some hills that kicked my ass.
Totally. That's cool. The benefits of being a harmonica player and having, small gear, you can take your bike with you. You're like, I don't have 3 guitars, so
That's right.
this is coming with me.
I had a whole bay in the bus from, but then the bike, I leave the bike there. It just bolts take the front wheel off and it bolts to the floor.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you just have like a road bike that you take around with you?
Road bike, yeah.
Yeah. The last thing I was going to ask you that just came up when you were talking about producing. Do you produce some stuff now too, and you've produced some stuff in the past? Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I did. I unproduced a Willie record back in the '60s when he was recording with all the strings and everything. I heard what they did with what the Beatles did with "Let It Be," where they took all the strings off and stripped it down, and they call it "Let It Be Naked." This one's called "Naked Willie," and I got a hold of multi-tracks from a lot of his recordings in the '60s, and went in with Tony Castle, our engineer, and just stripped everything down and just brought it down to the basic band, which was Willie and Grady Martin and Chet Atkins and Bob Moore and Charlie McCoy plays vibes on some of the stuff. Nice. So they just stripped it down to where it's the core studio cats, and it sounds like he recorded it last week. And then I remixed the Highwaymen live. We did that.
Cool.
There's a live version at Nassau Coliseum. It's a 3 CD set.
Yeah.
So I wasn't hands-on mixing. I was with an engineer, but
yeah. Wow.
I got to say, turn me up.
Yeah. Here's one question. Like, we all know like how the music business has changed throughout the years with streaming and with the internet and everything. How has the music industry changed for session guys like yourself? Like, has it evolved in the good and bad?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're making that many. The session guys are getting that much work right now because so much is done with programming, and just to go in with a live band. And there's so many guys. I mean, the fact that I can be an engineer and record myself. It might be a sign of the apocalypse, but
yeah.
It's gone way down. I mean, you see some great studio cats going out on the road now because that's really where the money's made, since nobody or very few people are selling massive amounts of records.
Yeah.
A lot of the studio guys are going out, taking really nice touring jobs that do exist,
Yeah. Yeah. And is there anything else, that you haven't done yet that you still really want to do with your career?
Go to Disneyland.
Yeah. Well, you've been to Disneyland.
I have been to Disneyland.
You've played Disneyland, haven't you? I don't know.
I don't know if we played there. We played in Disneyland in Paris. Oh, it was the most horrible thing in the world. But yeah, I love playing. There's, I've been real fortunate. I don't take any of it for granted. I've been able to play with some great people, work with some great, producers, and then just hope more of the same. Willie's healthy. He'll be 88. What is the date? Oh, his birthday is at the end of the month.
It's today. You're like, I gotta go.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the end of it's the end of April.
Wow.
So he'll be 88, and he's got his health. So as long as he's healthy, we'll keep doing it.
Yeah. No, that's
awesome.
great. That's great. Well, did we leave anything out? Did we cover everything?
I just want to say publicly.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But in front of Mickey, that when it comes to pop music, the 2 best harmonica players in the world are Mickey Rapahel and Stevie Wonder.
Thank you very much.
Doesn't get better than that. They just care more than most care. They give a shit, and I think that's number one thing for music.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on, and if you wouldn't mind, we'll hold on the line for just a sec. But I'm going to say goodbye to the audience. Thank you so much for coming on, Mickey. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
It has been fun. Mickey, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. This is I can't say enough how lucky I am to be able to do these episodes. It's so much fun. And especially, last March and April when the pandemic started, I started making the podcast more frequent because it was so nice to just meet people and hang out with people and make new friends. And I love every minute of it, even down to the editing. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Mickey, for being a part of it this week. And big thanks to Nic Clark as well for helping me co-host. If you like the show, please subscribe. There's a new one coming up every week. Any questions, comments, concerns, hate mail, or death threats, you can direct them to me, middleclassrockstar@gmail.com. And that includes, show suggestions too. You can also direct those at me. And once again, if you'd like to help out in a monetary way, I'm at Patreon, patreon.com/Andy Sydow, Sydow. And if not, that's totally fine. But a rating and review would help out. Would help out a ton. So, thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to chatting with you next week. Bye bye.